This movie takes place inside the biggest prison in Latin America back in the early 1990s. It dives into the daily lives of the inmates, showing how violence escalates because of extreme overcrowding. But at the same time, it reveals the strange order inside, along with the fragile, romantic, and hopeful side of men serving their sentences. It all builds up to the real tragedy that happened on October 2nd, 1992, when the state military police stormed the prison, leaving countless dead. The film kicks off with a heated argument among some inmates over the packed cells. One of them, Blackie, tries to calm things down because a lot of guys are ready to fight to the death. He pushes Blade into one of the cells to cool things off. Blade says that Lula came out of nowhere with a knife in his hand, and that's how the fight started. Right then, a group of guards walk in with the warden, Mr. Pires, and a volunteer doctor. Blackie apologizes to Mr. Pires for the fight, saying Lula crossed the line without asking permission. Lula cuts him off, accusing Blade of killing his father. Blade doesn't deny it. In fact, he admits he's killed plenty of people. Lula breaks down and explains to Blackie and Mr. Pires that Blade murdered his father right in front of his mother, and now he's been spreading rumors that he recognized her during visiting day. Blade argues that Lula doesn't know the whole story. According to him, Lula's mom wasn't sad about her husband's death, she was relieved. Lula says that's a lie. But then Blade drops a bombshell. He claims Lula's own mother paid him to kill her husband.
Tua mãe pagou pra eu matar o teu pai.
Lula bursts into tears, and another inmate goes over to comfort him, saying it's done. Mr. Pires orders both Lula and Blade to strip down to their underwear and step out of the cell. Blade tells Lula that as far as he's concerned, this story ends there, and he wants Lula to forget it. Blackie, embarrassed, apologizes for all this drama happening right when the doctor came to visit. Then, Mr. Pires asks Lula why he ended up back in prison. Lula explains that when he got home, he caught his wife in bed with another man. Her lover mocked him, saying that's just how life goes. To prove him wrong, Lula pulled the trigger. Mr. Pires shakes his head and tells him, what happens out there has to be handled out there. Inside, discipline is the only way to make it out through the front gate with family waiting. But guys who come in bragging about being part of the crime world, those are the ones who get forgotten behind bars. Mr. Pires then introduces the doctor to Massacre, better known as Blackie. Blackie shakes his hand but admits he's got a problem. He shouts to the prisoners that his kitchen knife is still missing. He warns them, whoever took it better give it back or a prisoner will die every single day. He asks Mr. Pires and the doctor to turn their back so the thief won't feel embarrassed. Then Blackie says he'll turn around, and when he comes back he expects to see the knife. He counts to 3, and sure enough the knife comes flying out of one of the cells.
Tô me virando.
Blackie picks it up from the floor and shows it to Mr. Pires. Mr. Pires keeps showing the prison to the doctor. They arrive at the Yellow Wing, nicknamed that way because of the skin tone of most inmates locked there. Mr. Pires explains that this spot is like the prison inside the prison. These guys stay locked up because they live in constant fear. They're vigilantes, rapists, snitches, guys who owe debts. Basically, people nobody forgives behind bars. They sit in the dark because in prison there's no such thing as mercy. The doctor asks if they ever get to see the sun. Mr. Pires walks up to one of the cells and asks if the inmates want to go outside for sunlight or maybe walk around the yard. Nobody answers. When they finally reach the yard, the doctor asks what the prisoners do all day. Mr. Pires explains that they just wander around in circles, acting like they're busy, but not going anywhere. He adds that the prison holds 7,000 men, and just that one pavilion has over 1,800. Inside a small room, the doctor points out that if inmates could at least understand how HIV spreads, it would already be a progress, because they catch the virus inside the prison, and when they're out, they pass it on to women, making the epidemic unstoppable. Mr. Pires shakes his head and says that the only ones who listen to the doctor are the real hustlers, the ones who want to get out alive so they can rob again on the outside. The doctor pushes back, saying it doesn't matter, they're living right in the middle of the outbreak, stuck inside, but Mr. Pires insists they're not stuck. According to him, the inmates are the real owners of the place. The prison only doesn't explode because the prisoners don't want it to. Suddenly they overhear old Chico on the phone with his daughter. Mr. Pires is surprised. He didn't even know Chico had family. Old Chico explains that even though he spent his whole life behind bars, he raised 18 children, and not one of them ever stepped foot inside a police station. The daughter he's talking to on the phone doesn't even remember his face anymore, so she finally decided to visit him at the prison. Chico asked Mr. Pires for a special favor, to let his daughter visit on a different day, not the regular visiting day, because he doesn't want any of his kids around the criminals during that chaos. Mr. Pierce sighs and says it's complicated. You can't bend the rules for one man when there are 7,000 others inside. Later, the doctor steps into another cell where some inmates are cleaning up. A guy in a wheelchair asks if the doctor wants to buy some cigarettes. The doctor replies he doesn't smoke. Then he notices an inmate named Miro coughing nonstop and warns him not to cough on the floor because if it's tuberculosis, anyone who steps on it could get infected. Another inmate, Antonio, jokes that if Miro had less coughing and more strength, maybe he'd walk over to the sink. The doctor insists that Miro needs to be isolated, but another prisoner quickly shuts him down. There's no chance. There's simply no space for that. The doctor starts checking on the prisoners. He asks one of them, nicknamed Beard, why he's locked up. Beard explains that his brother was murdered, and 2 days later, the killer was murdered too. Some people claimed it was him, others swore it wasn't.
Uns dizem que fui eu, mas não viram. Outros dizem que viram que eu não fui.
No proof either way. He's been behind bars for 5 years now, still waiting for a judge to decide his fate. The doctor asks if he has sexual relations inside the prison. Beard admits that everyone does, and anyone who denies it is just lying. The doctor then asks if he uses drugs through his veins. Beard tries to deny it, but the doctor has already noticed the needle marks on his arms. Next, the doctor sees another inmate being carried in by others. This one is Alipio. When asked if he uses drugs, Alipio says no. Instead, he says he got HIV inside prison. The doctor keeps talking with different prisoners, hearing stories that all sound like a mix of pain and survival. After a long day of work, the doctor walks through the dimly lit corridors, observing inmates fighting, talking, watching TV, and eating. When he reaches the front gates, some inmates walk toward him, but the guard stops them because every approach could be an escape attempt. Blackie calls out, asking if the doctor will come back tomorrow. The doctor leaves without answering. On his way home, he reflects on the crimes these men committed. He knows he has only two options: forget about them or return. The next day, the doctor goes back to Carandiru and keeps examining the prisoners. While checking on Blackie, he asks why he's in prison. Blackie opens up. One Christmas, he and his friends decided to rob a jewelry store. Everything went smoothly until they argued over splitting the loot. That's when Blackie's son appeared at the window. Blackie told him to leave, but the situation spun out of control. He shot one of his friends, thinking the guy was armed because his hand was hidden. Gordo, another accomplice, pointed a gun at him. Blackie swore it wasn't his fault. Gordo said he should kill Blackie right there, but couldn't pull the trigger. Blackie grabbed the gun and took control. They dumped the body in a river. Blackie tells the doctor that betrayal is ugly.
É o Judas que age assim.
Later, Gordo was arrested and ratted him out to the police. Gordo also warned him that the murdered friend's brothers were coming after him. Blackie says he could have snitched on Gordo as an accomplice, but instead backed up his story. The doctor asks if Gordo ever paid for that betrayal. Blackie answers that he was killed while trying to escape. He got stuck in a tunnel, and the other prisoners stabbed him to death. The doctor calmly tells Blackie that he isn't sick, just stressed, and gives him some medicine. Just then, No Chance calls the doctor to see old Chico's balloon floating in the air before crashing down. Right after, Lady Di walks into the room asking for an HIV test. She tells the doctor she's never injected drugs, only smoked, but admits she's had over 2,000 partners. The doctor prepares to run the exam, while No Chance gets ready to collect the sample. Diostiti looks for a cell to stay in. He ends up at Blade's cell, but Blade charges him $200 for the spot. Diostite says he doesn't have any money. Zico steps in and tells him he already has a place to stay. Meanwhile, Majesty tries to hide drugs in a toilet but gets bitten by a rat. He heads to the infirmary to get stitches. While the doctor is treating him, he yells at Lula for smoking right there during the operation. The doctor notices Majesty wearing 2 wedding rings and asks if he's been married twice. Majesty grins and says having just one horse isn't enough. He starts telling the doctor his story. Majesty met Dalva at a soccer game, and even though she said she was already engaged, he insisted. He even waited for her outside, and when her fiancé tried to drag her away, Majesty pulled a gun and fired into the air. The guy ran off terrified. Majesty explains that Dalva gave him a family, but he never quit stealing. He just upgraded his schemes. With Dalva, he had 3 kids, and with another woman, Rosirene, he had 1 more. At one point, Majesty is dancing with Dalva in a bar while Rosirene watches from afar. He walks up to Rosirene to invite her out, but Dalva catches them and a fight breaks out. Later, Majesty admits he split his time, Monday through Thursday with Dalva, and the rest of the week with Rosirene in a small room near the bus station. One night, Majesty catches Rosarine working the streets with one of his friends. She tells him she's leaving for Miami with this guy. Furious, Majesty grabs a burning log from a fire pit and storms after her. He finds her asleep in their room, wakes her, and demands she leave. She refuses, and they end up making love. Dalva eventually finds them sleeping together and, in a rage, douses the bed with alcohol and sets it on fire. Rosarine reveals she's pregnant with Majesty's child, and Dalva starts beating him. Majesty ends up arrested, taking the blame to protect Dalva, and gets sentenced to 10 years. The doctor asks if the romance was worth it. Majesty simply says Rosarine had him under a spell. Back in another cell, Deusdedit is reading some letters. Zico asks if Francis wrote to him. She asks if he was okay. Deusdedit replies bitterly, saying if she really knew what Zico was up to, she wouldn't even ask. Then Ezekiel shows up asking if he can pay off his debt with a hair straightener and borrow more. Zico refuses and kicks him out of the cell. Furious, Ezekiel storms off, gulps down blood thinking it's water, and loses it. Later, the doctor is checking on sick inmates. He notices one prisoner in critical condition and asks why he isn't on oxygen. Lula shrugs it off, saying he doesn't deserve it because he was guilty of harassment. The doctor snaps back, reminding them that inside the infirmary, he's not a criminal. He's a patient. The man begs to be moved to the Yellow Wing for protection, afraid of dying. No Chance coldly says he's against the death penalty, except when it comes to harassment cases. The doctor leaves frustrated. Meanwhile, old Chico waits all day for his daughter's visit. Time runs out and she never shows up. As he's escorted back to his cell, he lashes out and hits a guard. For that, he's dragged off to solitary confinement. No Chance and Lady Di go to the doctor to make their relationship official. The doctor says No Chance needs to take an HIV test first. Lady Di teases him, saying he's either scared of needles or he doesn't really want to marry her. Their talk gets cut off when Lula rushes in, saying they urgently need the doctor. A group of inmates bring in Zico, who's sick and weak. Deusdedit explains it's because of the drugs. Zico opens up to the doctor, telling him that one day his mom left and never came back, so Deusdedit and their sister Frances took him in. He remembers when the three of them were playing in a lake and Deusdedit started drowning. Zico saved him, and from that day on, he always felt responsible for him. The doctor tells Zico he chose the wrong path in life. Zico defends himself, saying there's nothing wrong with selling drugs to people who want them. He points out he'll be out in 2 years and that he's never killed anyone. The doctor then asks why Deusdedit ended up in prison. Deusdedit explains that one day his sister came home acting strange. When he pressed her, she locked herself in the bathroom and confessed 2 men had tried to force themselves on her. She didn't want to talk about it anymore, but Deusdedit went to Zico for help. He had already gone to the police, but word got out, and soon the men were after him. Zico promised to take care of it, but Deusdedit insisted on a gun to defend himself. Not long after, the 2 men cornered him on the street. He shot one, then chased down the other. When the second man tried to hide, Deusdedit waited and shot him too. He tells the doctor he's looking at 48 years behind bars. Meanwhile, old Chico is in solitary, passing time by playing with a gag. Elsewhere, Zico goes to Blackie, complaining that Ezekiel won't pay his debt. He says he also owes Majesty and asks permission to kill Ezekiel. Blackie tells him to calm down, promising to talk to Ezekiel and see if his family can come up with the money. But if not, then yes, Zico has permission to kill. Later, the doctor checks Miro's x-ray. Miro doesn't want to take his medicine, but the doctor insists, telling him it's the only way to get better. Miro finally gives in. The doctor asks what he used to do outside prison. Antonio jumps in, saying they used to hit armored trucks. They would plan for 6 months, even getting close to the guards' families. Half of the money went into savings or bribes for cops. On the day of the heist, they set a car on fire in the street to block the path, shot out the tires of the truck, and forced the guards out. But Antonio also confesses something darker. He tells Miro that his wife was cheating on him with a cop. Miro storms off in disbelief, while Dina, his wife, asks Celia if Antonio's just making things up. Antonio swears he saw Dina in a car with a policeman. Dina cries, saying Antonio once asked her to run away with him, but she refused because she loved her husband. Antonio calls her a liar. Miro comes back and Antonio follows him, insisting Dina is lying. Dina calls out to Miro while Celia scolds Antonio. Antonio recalls losing his closest friend. On his first heist alone, he got caught. And Miro? He was betrayed. The night he planned to run away with his wife, she turned him in to the police. Miro shot the cops and his wife. Now, lying weak, Miro asks the doctor if his son remembers what happened. The doctor gently says no. At that moment, Antonio looks at the doctor and pleads, "Let him go." Miro takes his last breath in his friend's arms. The inmates scrub down the prison stairways as preparations are made for a special event. Famous dancer and singer Rita Cadillac is invited to perform inside the prison. not only to entertain but also to help the doctor educate the inmates on how to take care of themselves. Family visiting day arrives. Grace brings toast to her husband, Blackie. Katerina, watching closely, says she wants a man like him and asks Francis if Deadliest would like her. Francis replies that's between them. Their mother reminds them that life is easier for a man in prison if he has a woman waiting for him on the outside. Grace adds that only with a lot of love in her heart can a woman handle this kind of life, especially when her child constantly asks about his father. Meanwhile, Blade is working out in a makeshift prison gym, then heads across the yard as other inmates spend time with their families. Francis introduces Katerina to Deadliest, saying her sister always talks about him. Zico sneaks up, covering Francis's eyes. She laughs but immediately notices how thin he looks, teasing him about eating too much junk food. Deadliest jokes that it's true, but not just junk food. Their mother asks Zico if he's been taking good care of Deadliest. Zico nods, saying yes. In another cell, Majesty receives Dalva and their kids. As the children play, he and Dalva share an intimate moment. Suddenly, the loudspeaker calls him to Pavilion 9. Blade buys packs of cigarettes and heads toward the Yellow Wing. At Pavilion 9, Majesty runs into Rosarine and their child. She asks for a kiss and invites him back to her cell. Majesty tries to dodge with excuses, but Rosarine quickly realizes Dalva is there too. She storms off and comes face to face with Dalva in the corridor. The two women exchange threats, but Majesty begs them both to sit down and calm down. In tears, Majesty tells them they need to find some kind of peace. Dalva shrugs and says if he loves them both, that's his problem. Rosarine agrees, but pushes him to choose who he really wants to be with. Majesty breaks down crying, trapped in the middle. Inside the prison barbershop, Mr. Peary's and the doctor witness the whole scene. Curious, the doctor asks what Majesty has that they don't. Then he casually asks if he's ever kissed his own wife. Later, Francis finds Zico and sits beside him. She gently asks if there's anything he wants to tell her. Zico replies that she's never shared what really happened that day. She insists it's in the past, but he pushes. She never told anyone what those men actually did to her. She takes off his cap and asks him to promise that when he gets out of prison, he'll let his hair grow back. Zico asks if she even believes in promises. Francis tells him he's not the same Zico they once knew. Back in the Yellow Wing, Blade confronts a prisoner accused of harassment. He asks what happened. The inmate admits he lied, saying he had HIV to keep others away, but it didn't work. The man who assaulted him was already infected. Blade coldly tells him to forget about it, revealing the other prisoner had lied about being infected. The inmate laughs nervously. Meanwhile, Ezekiel goes to Blackie, saying he'll pay his debt through his sister. She'll sleep with other inmates to get the money. Blackie coldly tells him to do whatever he thinks is best. Antonio is with his wife and son. She apologizes for believing Dina's lies and asks if Antonio still trusts her. He says he never stopped. Together, they sing happy birthday for their child. Meanwhile, No Chance asks for the blessing of Lady Di's father, Mr. Antonio. But the father refuses to accept his son Dircio's transition. Lady's mother quietly asks if she truly believes in No Chance. Lady Di hugs her and says she's never met anyone like Matthias. Mr. Antonio storms out, saying he doesn't understand, and his wife follows, admitting they don't know what's truly right. Another mother approaches the doctor, insisting her son Davilson didn't commit murder and begging the doctor to take care of him. The doctor tells Davilson to stop by the infirmary later. As the visitors leave, Katerina asks Deadliest if she can come back. He reminds her that his sentence is long. She smiles and says she's not in a hurry. In the Yellow Wing, Mr. Pires hears from inmates that one prisoner took his own life during the night.
Esse aí não estupra mais ninguém.
Meanwhile, No Chance and Lady Di get the results of their HIV tests. They're both negative. Relieved, Lady Di is happy, but No Chance seems conflicted. He explains that he's been granted freedom but doesn't want to leave, afraid to abandon Lady. She reassures him she's not alone because she has him. Elsewhere, Majesty, Blackie, Zico, and Ezekiel discuss Ezekiel's unpaid debt. Zico tries to brush it off, saying it doesn't matter because he'll be free in 2 years. Blackie explodes, kicks Ezekiel out of the cell, tells him to go live in the Yellow Wing, and mocks Zico in front of everyone. The inmates laugh. In solitary, old Chico refuses the doctor's visit. He explains that after so many years in prison, the mind takes over the body. The doctor asks why he's there. Chico replies with bitterness, does the doctor really want to hear another lie? Everyone says they're innocent. The doctor chuckles and asks how long he has left. Chico admits he's too old to earn parole, but still waiting on a judge's decision. He says all he wants now is freedom. The doctor asks about friends he's made inside. Chico shakes his head. He doesn't want friends in prison, only God as company. When asked about his daughter, he stays silent. Back in the cell, Deadliest is watching TV while Zico starts acting paranoid, holding a knife and searching under the bed. Startled, Diustiti asks what he's doing. Zico mutters that someone's trying to stab his eye. Suddenly he points the knife at Diustiter, who panics and wrestles it away. Zico lights a cigarette, but Diustiter throws it on the ground. Later that night, Zico boils water and pours it over Diustiter while he's sleeping. The other inmates complain to Blackie that Diustiter wouldn't let them smoke. Blackie shakes his head, saying that's no excuse for cowardly murder. You don't kill a childhood friend like that, he warns. Now this problem belongs to all of us. Soon after, Lady Di and No Chance get married. During the celebration, No Chance raises a toast to the doctor, saying that thanks to him, he'll open his own office once free and wait for Lady to build a family together. Not long after, Zico approaches Majesty asking for help, but Majesty snaps and starts beating him. He shoves Zico toward the other inmates who stab him repeatedly. Blade picks up the knife but freezes, unable to finish the job. Majesty turns to Ezekiel, manipulating him, saying the blame should fall on Zico instead. He plants the idea that Ezekiel killed Zico over the debt. Ezekiel protests, saying he's only 2 years away from freedom. Majesty sneers that it doesn't matter, he's already infected with HIV, but Majesty adds, if he takes the blame, he'll get a cell to himself with clean clothes and free cigarettes. Later, Mr. Pires and the doctor find Zico's body. Ezekiel steps forward, claiming responsibility for the murder. Finally, old Chico is released from prison. Everyone gathers to say goodbye. Blackie tells him to go in peace.
Fica você com ela. Aí dentro você vai precisar muito mais do que eu.
Blade starts seeing the ghosts of Zico and Daustede. Zico's ghost asks why Blade didn't stab him. Blade replies that he couldn't do it and asks about Daustede. Zico says wherever he goes, Daustede follows. Blade nervously asks if Zico met God in heaven. Zico shakes his head, saying he hasn't seen him yet. Blade hugs him, but suddenly starts bleeding, waking up from the nightmare in shock. The next day, Blade goes to the doctor, confessing that he thinks he's losing his mind. He says he's been seeing ghosts, and that this was the first time in his life he couldn't kill. The doctor calmly explains that people change, and maybe it's just guilt catching up after so many murders. Blade asks if there's any medicine for guilt. The doctor replies, if there was, everyone would want it. Life inside continues. In the kitchen, inmates sing while cooking. Blackie's son comes to visit. Blade, still shaken, walks out in the rain and enters the prison chapel. The pastor welcomes him, telling him God has a plan. Crying, Blade kneels and accepts Jesus. A soccer match kicks off in Pavilion 9. The inmates sing the national anthem. The doctor is invited to give the opening kick, but as he heads out, he finds Beard hanging a laundry with a few others. Beard wishes him a great weekend. The doctor leaves, reflecting on Beard's words, and remembering old Chico's warning. When the prison is too calm, something bad is about to happen.
Só encontrei o vazio dos buracos das balas nas paredes.
It all begins with something small. A prisoner tries to hang his laundry, but Beard orders him to find another spot. When he refuses, a fight breaks out. Guards see it and order them to stop. Lula later says nobody really knows why it started. Some blame a cigarette, others a soccer foul, others just underwear. During the soccer match, Davilson calls a foul and scores a goal, sparking wild celebration. At the same time, the laundry fight escalates inside. The players rush upstairs still celebrating and get caught in the chaos. Davilson admits later he was terrified. Anything could have happened to him in that mess. Soon, a full-scale riot erupts. Inmates grab weapons, set fires in the hallways, and some try to escape. Others watch on prison TVs, horrified as chaos spreads to every corner. 300 armed riot police with dogs are called in. From his cell, Blackie describes seeing wave after wave of masked officers, only their eyes showing, with a helicopter flying low, machine gun aimed at them. Police and firefighters flood the compound, trying to contain the fires. The governor hands full control of the prison to the riot police commander, authorizing him to invade. Mr. Pires protests, insisting the prisoners have no hostages, no water, no electricity. They won't last long. He pleads with the inmates to calm down, asking them to hand over their weapons. They throw guns out the windows and raise white flags. But when Mr. Pires begs them to return to their cells, someone hurls a toilet out the window, shattering the fragile peace. A prisoner mutters that it's election season, so surely the governor won't let the prison blow up. But the riot squad storms in anyway, guns blazing. Antonio recalls that nobody was stupid, no one wants to die. When the police charged in, the inmates knew knives and sticks were no match for rifles. Everyone ran back to their cells. But the police kept firing, shooting even into the locked cells. Antonio survived only by playing dead. One officer taunted Ezekiel, saying he'd let him live to tell the story, but then turned back and shot him anyway. Majesty bitterly comments that the cop only wanted to give him a little false hope before killing him. In Blackie's cell, an officer asks if he and his son were a part of the riot. Blackie swears they were only playing soccer. The cop doesn't care. He robs Blackie of his necklace and walks away. No Chance and Lady Di are watching TV inside their cell when a police officer storms in and points a gun at them. But for some reason, he doesn't pull the trigger. They never understood why. Lula tries to hide, and the officer who finds him also doesn't kill him. Lula later says it was the picture he had taken with the officer's son that saved his life. The cop sneers, saying Lula only got lucky because he looks like his boy. Still, he shoots Lula's hand. All around, inmates desperately try to survive but can't. Police dogs sniff through piles of bodies. Officers force prisoners out of their cells completely naked, making them shout, "Long live the riot police." The survivors are ordered to sit on the ground, eyes down, for hours through the day and night. Prisoners are forced to drag the bodies of their dead friends out of the cells. Davilson, trying to escape, witnesses police executing more inmates. He drops to the ground and pretends to be dead, his only chance to live. Later, he sneaks back to a cell and reads a letter from his mother, quoting Psalm 91. Blood runs down the prison stairways. The doctor narrates, saying that his work on HIV prevention among prisoners is what first brought him to Carandiru. There, he heard their stories, made friends, learned medicine, and learned what it meant to coexist inside a world most people would never understand. He confesses that even today, whenever the prison gates slam shut behind him, he feels the same lump in his throat that he used to feel as a kid in the Rialto movie theater watching old black and white prison films, electrified. The film closes with a chilling reminder. 111 men died in the Carandiru massacre. In 2002, the last inmates were transferred and the prison was shut down. Not long after, the government ordered Carandiru demolished. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button and leave a comment. See you in the next video.